We're learning about the aftermath of a big apartment fire overnight in southwest Springfield. Connor Trett is live at Pebblecreek on South Fort with what we know right now. Connor.
Paul, crews were called to the scene of the apartment complex around 10:30 last night, and when they arrived on scene, they were met with heavy flames, and it took nearly 40 firefighters to tackle the flames. In all, 24 units were damaged, and 3 people here were taken to a nearby hospital. While the Springfield Fire Department couldn't comment on the cause of the fire while it's still under investigation, I did speak to another department about some of the more common causes of fires in apartment complexes.
Apartment fires, it goes along with a lot of the residential structure fires. You have cooking fires being the leading cause, improper disposal of burning materials such as cigarettes, ashtrays, and then heating appliances such as buddy heaters, space heaters, and the outdoor propane deck heaters as well.
Now, about 30 people who lived in the apartment complex will be spending the night elsewhere. Those accommodations have been taken care of by the property managers and the Red Cross. Reporting in Springfield, Connor Trett, KY3 News.